Hello, class. My name is Andre Williams, and it's a pleasure to share with you this introduction for OL660. And I look forward to meeting each of you via your videos as well. A little bit about my background. I am the middle child of five. I'm born to parents, both of whom were teachers. So education has always been a major part of my life. My father taught at a school called Ferris State College, which is now Ferris State University, in Big Rapids, Michigan, where I was raised. Big Rapids is a small town, a college town, and there are maybe 10,000 people in the town, about the same number in the college. And it's the kind of place that you grew up where basically everybody knows everybody. I grew up playing sports and trying to excel in school and please my parents in that regard, and also was active in student politics and graduated as the president of our senior class, as a matter of fact, from a school called Morley Stanwood High School. I am a non traditional student in the truest sense of the word, in that I did not finish college right after high school. I started college at Morehouse College, which was also my dad's alma mater. My dad met my mom, as a matter of fact, when he was a student at Morehouse after having served 4 years in the U.S. Air Force. My dad was a Korean War veteran, and he met my mother at a church called Beulah Baptist Church, where he sang in the choir with who would turn out to be my grandmother, and it was my grandmother who introduced the two of them. At the time that my dad met my mother in 1958, he was also the managing editor of the Morehouse newspaper, the Maroon Tiger. And the person who recommended to my dad that he marry my mom was a gentleman by the name of Julian Bond, the late Senator Julian Bond. He and my dad were good friends at Morehouse. And my dad was on his way out to a program at Sisters Chapel at Spelman College and had a date with three young ladies, as I understand it, three young Spelmanites, and my mother being one of them. And he told Julian to meet him at the newspaper office. He was going to bring them by because at this stage in his life, he was ready to settle down and get married. And he had his eye on each one of these three young ladies. And he wanted his friend Julian to give him his opinion as to which one he thought he should marry. And Julian's response was, in effect, if you want to have a good time, then by all means pick one of these other two. But if you want to settle down and get married, then choose that one. And he indicated that he thought my dad should marry my mom, and the rest, as they say, is history. I am the middle of child of five, and as a middle child, I think that I probably grew up being somewhat of a negotiator and problem solver. And that goes very much to how my personality developed and was shaped, but also to who I am professionally today and what I tend to do for a living. My major is the Master of Science in Organizational Leadership with the concentration in strategic thinking and innovation. And my experience has been very much one of working with organizations and teams in helping develop leaders, build consensus, develop strategic plans, drive businesses forward, help businesses grow, etc. And there's a lot of negotiating that is involved in that effort. And in addition to those things that I've done in the for-profit sector, I've also had the privilege of working in the community sectors as well, in the public sector. And I've been the executive director of a couple of not-for-profits. Both of those were in the DE&I space. One of those was a contractor development program that I helped to develop the strategic plan for and lead, which was called Community Construction Outreach of Peoria. This was in Peoria, Illinois, which happens to be my hometown. And the second of those two organizations was a workforce development program, a nonprofit that was made up of community leaders as well. And that organization was called the Peoria Area Diversity and Employment Action Team, or PAYDEAT, and it was sponsored by the city of Peoria. In both of those efforts, there was a great deal of um, change management, helping people to overcome historical barriers to progress in the DE&I space as it related to contractors gaining opportunities to grow their capacity and work in various projects throughout the city of Peoria and the surrounding region. And in the second case, it was helping uh, African American and other minority and women workers gain the skills and access to the union jobs and the union workforce there in and around Peoria as well. In that effort, and I think this is where a lot of the negotiating and consensus building really come to play, I was able to help change the mindset, really, of the people who were at the table, the stakeholders, whether those were the city, the unions, the other owners in the area, the hospitals. Caterpillar's home is in Peoria, at least was headquartered in Peoria at the time that I was there, from '06 to 2016. And that actually led to some other things that were outside the scope of the organization that we were able, or I should say, we were credited with having helped bring about indirectly. Namely, the work that we did later on sparked well, I should say it engendered a relationship between the local NAACP there in Peoria and the mayor's office. And the NAACP was able to secure a commitment from the then mayor of Peoria, Jim Artis, that the city would increase its minority participation in its police and fire departments by 34% over a 10-year period. And that was, again, an indirect result, I think, of helping to change the mindsets of the stakeholders. That's very important to me. And whether it's working in the for-profit sector, the not-for-profit sector, or the public sector, my background specifically has, outside of or in addition to helping to lead these nonprofits, has involved a lot of strategic planning and change management work with some of the leading institutions in the United States. For example, I've had the privilege of leading 2 strategic planning engagements with divisions of the United States Veterans Administration, both its Health Eligibility Center and its Health Resource Center. And in that regard, helped that organization enhance its services to the more than 6 million of our nation veterans that it serves. At the same time, I've had the privilege of leading training and development engagements with second-year managers of the Centers for Disease Control through the CDC's what's called their PHPS, their Professional Health Service Prevention trainings that they offer each year. And this was to help second-year managers develop the leadership skills, the strategic leadership skills, to be more effective as they look forward to becoming or taking on directorships at state health facilities. In addition to that, I've had the privilege of leading a change management engagement with the National Kidney Foundation of Georgia, and that was one that involved assessing the best practices of similarly sized NKFs around the United States, in Illinois, in Michigan, and in Washington, D.C. area as well, and then developing the strategic plan for how they could implement those practices. And so it involved several months of work of engaging those stakeholders of those various NKFs, as well as their constituent councils and their nephrologists, et cetera, and identifying what those practices were. The objective of that particular change management project was to transform the National Kidney Foundation of Georgia from what it was at that time, a $1.5 million service organization, into a $3 million annual service and prevention organization. Since that time, they have actually leapfrogged forward, and now that organization is also partnered with the National Kidney Foundation of Alabama, and they are essentially one entity with over a $15 million per year annual budget. And so I'm very pleased with the way that organization has, in fact, adopted some of those change practices that it was seeking. So that's a little bit about my background as it relates to my major. As far as what my career aspirations are, I very much look forward to being a global influencer. I look forward to uh, leveraging those skills, experience, of course, my education, but also some of the relationships that I've been able to develop along the way into becoming a global consultant. Some of the work that I've been able to do with communities, I would love to be able to do with communities abroad as much as communities across the United States, and obviously continue to lead strategic planning efforts, etc. My most recent engagement was in just this past January, the 12th and 13th, at the University of Rochester in Rochester, New York. And in that capacity, I was tasked with helping the Facilities and Services Department align its work and goals with those of the university's 2023 mission and plan. And the person who spearheaded that was a gentleman by the name of Mike Chahovsky. Mike is the Senior Associate Vice President for Facilities and Services at UR there. And Mike, at the time that or I should say when I met Mike, he was actually in a similar position at OSF Healthcare System in Peoria. When Mike left there, he went on to become the project manager of, and let me make sure I get this right, King Imar's Economic City in Saudi Arabia, which was then the largest and still may be the largest development on the face of the globe. Mike spent 2 years there with his family before coming back to the United States, and got back in contact with me not too long afterwards. And the rest, as they say, again, is history, because Mike enjoys the work that I do. The way that he put it recently is I'm the best that he's seen at strategic planning and consensus building. And so he asked me to come up to help them in their project. That was my most recent. But I say that to say that when it comes to leveraging relationships, Mike's is one of those relationships that I am looking forward to leverage. And in keeping with our training, what we've learned throughout this program, I have asked Mike to be a champion for me in that regard, in helping me get back into the consulting field, which I had left for 6 years. And this was my first engagement doing as a consultant again after a 6-year hiatus, which I took for personal reasons. And I'll just very, very briefly tell you that one of my sons and my wife, Dion, and I should tell you, my lovely wife, Dion, and I have a blended family and have 6 wonderful children, the youngest of whom is 10-year-old Benjamin, who's still at home. And we have 16 grandchildren. But one of my sons, my second youngest son, Adam, was killed here in Atlanta in 2016. And so that's what prompted the move back to Atlanta. We were planning on relocating back, but I really dropped everything right in the middle of an engagement at that time. And although I did some things in the education space and in the income tax space over the past few years, I'm just getting back into consulting. And so I credit that relationship with Mike and look forward to leveraging that relationship to get into global consulting. Mike has a development company that he still operates in addition to his work there at the University of Rochester. And I look forward to working with Mike and his team in getting into some of those global projects, development projects, and working with some of the folks that he knows around the world. He's not the only one. It's funny how life works. I've had the privilege of meeting a lot of very influential people, I would say, in my lifetime. And I really don't say that to name drop. It's just been one of those fortunate, very, very fortunate um, uh, occurrences in my life. One of the people that I had the great fortune of meeting is the ambassador, Botswana's ambassador to the United States, Her Excellency Masil Tebalelo Saritsi, who actually gave me her personal cell number when we met at a conference there in Peoria, Illinois, a construction and transportation conference. And that's another one of those relationships that I look forward to leveraging as I move forward into the global consulting space over the next several years. In addition to wanting to be a global consultant, as I mentioned, want to be a global influencer. And in part, I want to do that through my writing. I love to write. I very much enjoy the research writing part of what we do here in our program. And at the same time, I have about 50 book titles that I've started but have not finished. And I draw inspiration from so many of you, if not each one of you, through our discussion threads, and particularly those of you who are writers yourselves. And it shows through in your work. And whether you are a writer or not, the things that you teach me and that we learn together about confidence, about even about procrastination, about creativity. In fact, in Dr. Haney's class, those of you who were in his have taken his strategic thinking innovation class, one of the things that he talks about in, I believe it's week 6 or week 7, he shares a slide that has to do with the creative aspects of being a procrastinator. And so when I read things like that, it lets me know that I'm not a unicorn. And I do gain a lot of inspiration from the things that you all say and share about your lives and your approach and your career aspirations. And those very much affect or influence me and help encourage me, I should say, to know that my writing career is still up ahead of me. It's not too late. So that's one of the ways that I look forward to being a global influencer as well, is through my writing. And I do look forward to being one day a best-selling author as well as a public speaker. I should tell you, as I sort of go full circle with this and begin to draw to a close, that I also am an ordained minister. And although I didn't finish school, college the first time around, when I did start, I started at Morehouse, where I spent a year. Unfortunately, I started 2 years after my father had succumbed to cancer. And so as a young man, I just simply was not emotionally prepared to finish school. And instead, I took that untraditional or that non-traditional path of dropping out of school and within a couple of years getting married and starting a family, as I did with my first wife. And I've been in ministry now since 1982. So if you do the math, you'll realize that I've just recently celebrated a 40-year anniversary in ministry. And I was licensed in the ministry at that time and was later ordained in ministry and have since pastored several churches. The pastoral ministry is something that I very much enjoy. The preaching and the gospel ministry are very important to me. But more importantly, and I think more germane to what we're talking about here, they're very much a part of what I see as my role, my work, my purpose in life going forward. My personal mission statement is one that I adopted really around the age of 4, and that is leave this world a better place than I found it. That has not changed through all of my experience. That has been my mission. It's really my life's work. I try to do it with every relationship. I try to do it as much as possible with each and every encounter. I take that ethos with me into every engagement, whether it's strategic planning or goal alignment or change management. I'm trying to leave the room, I'm trying to leave the team, I'm trying to leave the organization, the firm better than I found it. And that's the same ethos that I look forward to taking with me as I also hopefully will influence the world in some very positive ways that are more grounded in my faith as much as they are in my planning methodologies, etc. So with that, let me just share a few hobbies with you as we draw to a close. I very much enjoy cooking for my family in particular. I love to fish. I'm an avid fisherman. I don't do nearly as much fishing since I've been back in Georgia as I did when I was in Illinois, where I was prone to fish all night long, sometimes all weekend long. I enjoy bank fishing. I enjoy pier fishing. I enjoy boat fishing. I enjoy fishing. The one type of fishing experience that I have not had yet that I look forward to is deep sea fishing. But that's something that I've recently gotten an invitation to do, and I probably am going to try and take advantage of a little bit of that this summer, just as soon as we get a break. So those are a couple of my hobbies: cooking, fishing. I also love to travel, and my wife and I spent a wonderful vacation celebrating her birthday 2 years ago now, in October of 21, in San Juan, Puerto Rico, which, by the way, is just about a 30-minute shuttle flight from her hometown in Christiansted, Virgin Islands, in St. Croix in the Virgin Islands. So we look forward to going back to San Juan, and this time making the puddle jump over to St. Croix as well, as she has not been back home since she was 6 years old, and I look forward to going for the first time. So again, those are some of my hobbies, some interesting facts about me. Since I shared with you that I'm a minister, I'll share this really neat thing that happened to me. One Easter, several years ago now, probably about 25 years ago, I visited Ebenezer Baptist Church. And it was the old sanctuary, what they called, after they built their new sanctuary, they called the Heritage Sanctuary, the new one being the Horizon Sanctuary. The worship service was held in the old building, the old historic Ebenezer Baptist Church there on Auburn Avenue in downtown Atlanta. And the pastor at the time was a gentleman by the name of Roberts. And I recall Pastor Roberts asking that if there were any ordained clergy in the sanctuary, if they would come down and assist with the communion service. And I was way up in the balcony. The church was very crowded. It was pretty much almost standing room only. And so I did. I obliged, and I went down to help serve communion. And he asked me to stand on his right side, and as we faced the congregation. It just so happened that sitting on that side were Coretta Scott King, Dr. King's widow, and Christine King Ferris, Dr. King's sister. And I had the privilege that day, that Easter Sunday morning, of serving communion to Dr. King's widow and to his beloved sister. And that's just kind of the way my serendipitous life has gone. And again, just an interesting fact. So that's a little bit about me. I look forward, as I said, to learning more about you. Hopefully this hasn't been too long. I have a tendency to be wordy at times, but I hope that you've enjoyed it. And again, I look forward to talking with you soon. Best of luck in the class. Best of luck in your careers, and anything that you need that I can help provide. That's what I'm here for. We'll talk soon. Take care. Bye.